Good evening and welcome to the 1149th regular meeting and public hearing of the Livonia City Planning Commission. I wish to inform all interested persons in the audience that for petitions on tonight's agenda, which involve a question of zoning, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council, after holding their own public hearing, makes the final determination as to whether a petition is approved or denied. Planning Commission holds the only public hearing on requests for preliminary plats and or vacating petitions. The Commission's recommendation is forwarded to City Council for the final determination as to whether the petition is accepted or rejected. If a petition requesting a waiver of use or a site plan is denied tonight, the petitioner will have 10 days in which to appeal the decision in writing to the City Council. Resolutions that are adopted by the City Planning Commission will become effective 7 days after the date of adoption. Planning Commission and the professional staff have reviewed each of these petitions upon their filing. Staff has furnished the Commission with both approving and denying resolutions, which the Commission may or may not use depending on the outcome of the proceedings tonight. If the Secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Present.
Mrs. McHugh.
Here.
Mr. Bonjero. Here. Mr. Long.
Is here.
Mr. Ventura. Here. Caremagno is here. Chairman Wilshaw
is here. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Also with us tonight, we have Mark Tormina and Stephanie Reese from our Planning Department. And again, I just want to remind folks in the audience, with each of these petitions, we will start with background information from our Planning Department. The petitioner will then come forward and speak to the item, answer any questions we may have, and then there will be an opportunity for anyone else who wishes to speak for or against the item to also come forward. With that, we'll start with the public hearing section of our agenda, item number 1.
Petition 2019-09-02-13, submitted by Children's Paradise, Inc., requesting waiver use approval pursuant to Section 9.03J of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 as amended to operate a daycare center at 9424 Newburgh Road, located on the southeast corner of Newburgh Road and Ann Arbor Trail in the northwest quarter of Section 32.
Again, thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll start with Mr. Tormina.
Thank you. Again, this is a request to operate a child care center that would be called Children's Paradise. This property is located at the southeast corner of Newburgh Road and Ann Arbor Trail. The property is 0.46 acre in size. It includes 103 feet of frontage on Ann Arbor Trail and 195 feet of frontage on Newburgh Road. The zoning is OS Office Services. The site presently contains an empty one-story 1,850 square foot building, and there are about 18 parking spaces located in the parking lot on this site. The subject property was originally developed as a gas station. This was in the late 1950s, and it operated as such until the mid to late 1970s. There were subsequent attempts to redevelop the property to include a restaurant or a party store. Both of these were rejected, and then in 1979, the site was rezoned from commercial to PS, which is an office classification. That was done by the Planning Commission on its own motion. In 1980, permission was granted to convert the vacant non-conforming gas station into a medical office building, and in 1986, approvals were granted allowing the site to be used for general office purposes, and it has remained that way ever since. The regulations pertaining to child care nurseries falls under Section 9.03J of the zoning ordinance. This is a use that requires waiver use approval in the OS district. Looking at the surrounding land uses immediately to the east is Cade Meadow Site Condominiums. That's zoned R1, one-family residential. There's a vacant parcel immediately to the south that is owned in common with this site. And then north across Ann Arbor Trail is a church as well as residential homes. This facility would be licensed to provide care for 20 to 30 children. These would range from infants to preschoolers. There's a floor plan that was submitted with the application. This is it. It shows the lobby, a separate preschool and infant toddler rooms, as well as a kitchen and separate restroom facilities. Access to the site is provided via 2 driveways. There's one on Newburgh as well as another on Ann Arbor Trail. The zoning ordinance requires that there be a minimum outdoor play space of at least 5,000 square feet. The proposed outdoor play area in this case would be located immediately adjacent to the south side of the building, and it totals 260 square feet. This area is presently grass. There is a tree located in the area that I believe will be removed. The approval of the smaller play area is something that can only be approved by the city council. The play area would be surrounded by either a 5-foot high chain link or a wooden privacy fence. We do not have details relative to how that play space will be improved. Required parking is based on 1 parking space for each employee, plus enough off-street space for the safe and convenient loading and unloading of students. Again, the plan shows 16 striped parking spaces. This includes 6 along Ann Arbor Trail on the north side of the site, and then an additional 10 spaces on the west side adjacent to Newburgh Road. There is no trash dumpster shown with this proposal. There is a requirement for a minimum 5-foot high masonry wall along the east side of the property where this site abuts the residential district. Currently, there are 2 fences between the non-residential use and the adjacent Cade Meadows development. There's a chain link fence which is on the office property, and then there's a white vinyl fence that's been installed along the rear yards of the homes in Cade Meadows. A wall was never built on the commercial properties. Our records indicate that the Zoning Board of Appeals has granted several consecutive 5-year wall waivers. The last one was issued in 2000. Around 2015, the previously vacant land to the east was developed with Cade Meadows site condominiums. This site does not qualify for a permanent green belt due to the setbacks of the building, as well as the parking lot and the inability to meet the minimum requirements in terms of establishing a landscape buffer. So the alternatives are to either build the wall, or the owner could pursue another permanent variance or temporary variance for that matter with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Or thirdly, they could seek the approval of the neighbors to the east. That is something that is available in the zoning ordinance and can be done in 5-year increments. There are no exterior building modifications shown. The petitioner would be allowed 1 wall sign totaling 16 square feet. This is some photographs of the building to give you a better understanding of the site and the characteristics of the site. It's primarily a brick building with a mansard facade, shingled facade. This is a photograph of the area that would be used as for the play area for the students. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence.
Yes, please.
First item is dated September 11th, and it is from the Engineering Division, and it reads, in accordance with your request, the Engineering Division has reviewed the above referenced petition. We have no objections to the proposed waiver use at this time. The existing parcel is assigned the address of 9424 Newburgh Road. The legal description provided appears to be correct and should be used in conjunction with this petition. The existing parcel is currently serviced by public water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer, which is under the jurisdiction of the City of Livonia. The information submitted does not show proposed alterations for the utility services, so it does not appear that there will be any impacts to the existing systems. It should be noted that should the developer need to do any work within the Newburgh Road or Ann Arbor Trail rights-of-ways, detailed site plans will need to be submitted to this department. That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter from our Livonia Fire and Rescue indicating that they have no objections to the proposal. That letter is dated September 20th and signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal. Another letter of no objection coming from the Department of Public Safety Division of Police, dated September 13th, and signed by Brian Lee, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. Next is a letter from the Inspection Department dated October 8th that reads, pursuant to your request, the above referenced petition has been reviewed and the following is noted. Number 1, the parking lot needs to be repaired as necessary and restriped. The parking spaces are to be double striped and 10 feet by 20 feet. And 3, there is no dumpster enclosure. The commission and or council may wish to address this. This department has no further objections to this petition, and that letter is signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Department of Finance, dated September 13th, and signed by Connie Cumpula, Chief Accountant. And lastly, a letter of no objection from the Office of Treasurer, dated September 11th, and signed by Linda Shield, Treasurer of the City of Livonia. That is the extent of the correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Toromina. Do we have any questions for our planning department? Glenn, Mr. Long?
Mark, I also noticed in our package that there was a printout from the DEQ.
Yes, I did include that. I don't have it on the slideshow. So the question came up at the study meeting relative to the former use of this property as a gas station. I think there was a question from one or more of the commissioners addressing the issue of environmental studies for the site, whether or not there had been closure. We did check the database that is maintained by the DEQ previously, but now Lara, and it indicates that the site is still classified as open. What exactly that means is I'm not really sure. It just hasn't been officially closed by either agency in terms of the underground storage tank removal. We believe all of those tanks have been removed based on some of the records that we have on file. There was, if and when there was a leak detected, I'm not exactly sure. There's some notification to that presented in the data. It just doesn't indicate that there was ever final closure on that issue, so we're not sure of the current status.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Ventura, did you have a question?
Mr. Long answered my question, or asked my question. Mr. Tormina, is there a way to get a final answer as to whether or not there are any contaminants still in the ground?
That would probably, that would require initially a phase 1, and if it proceeds to a phase 2 environmental audit, typically that's when it's determined whether or not there's any issues related to underground contamination.
So there's nothing in the record now that lets us know?
Not in the city, not in the city records, and the only, what I could find is what you have
In the package.
in the package. That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Good questions. Any other questions for our planning? Ms. McHugh?
I would think the only other option related to that was to go back to the owner of the property and see
Correct.
if he has the original environmental. Because they'll always have a copy. If they've gotten this far, they have an original environmental somewhere. That would be my thought.
Good, good. Any other questions or comments for the planning staff? I don't see anybody else, so we'll start with our petitioner. I believe she's here in the audience. Good evening, ma'am.
How are you?
Good. We'll ask that you start with your name and address for our record.
Felicia Guest, 35688 Garner Street, Romulus, Michigan, 48174.
Thank you, Ms. Guess. And is there anything else that you would like to add to the presentation that you've heard so far?
Not at this moment, and okay, the owner is here, so I think all of the questions that needed to be answered that we had would be actually addressed to him.
Okay, good. Yes, we may very well have some questions that he can help us with, but we'll see first if there's any questions for you, and then we'll go from there.
All right.
Any questions for our petitioner, Ms. Smiley?
Good evening. Do you know what the licensing requirement for outdoor playground is with that many children?
Yes, it's 2,500, but only the preschool would be going out, and so with the 20 to 30, it would only be probably 15 preschoolers. Anyway, the rest of them would be toddlers or infants.
Okay, so it's 2,500 though?
Yes,
Okay, and are you going to be the person on the license?
yes,
And so you have a background in early childhood or child development?
I do.
Okay, so you're licensable, that's my first question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then is there an indoor play area?
There
I'm
will
seeing the
be.
rooms, are they,
It would be a small play area for them to play, and the way we would position the preschool room, and then the infant toddler room, of course, they would have floor space for them to be able to learn how to, body, small motor skills. So all that would be in each classroom.
okay. Good. All right, those were my questions for now. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions for our petitioner?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Caremagna?
where do you operate a business, childcare business now, and if so, where?
No, not currently. We had one in Inkster over 15 years ago, but I went to work after that, after my children grew up. So not at this current time, no.
Did you operate out of a building or out of a house?
Out of a home.
Okay, and how many children did you manage there?
We had 12
Okay.
at a time, because it was a group home, and you can only have 12.
Okay.
But I had children 24 hours. I was 7 days a week.
How many employees did you have?
I had 7 employees.
Wow, how many
And then
employees?
anybody in my home over 14 had to also go through the process of being screened and making sure everybody was good. So my family also helped.
Okay. How many employees would you have here working for
We're
you?
gonna have 10. It's gonna be myself and my daughter who will be the owners. And then we will have 3 infant teachers, and then the other ones will be in the preschool area. But we would also be instructors if we had to be, not only just the directors.
Okay, and your plans are to be open, what are your hours and days?
6 a.m. to 9:45,
PM?
yes.
How many days a week?
5,
Monday through Friday?
yes.
Why so late?
Because people need that extra time. Jobs are not just 9 to 5 anymore. And you have your afternoon shifts that need that extra time to be, if they have to have someone pick the children up. So I'm trying to monopolize the timing of people that have to go to work. 5 a.m., usually people have to be at work at 7 or 8. They need someone early. And you don't have that many around that opens up early or stay open late.
Okay. What plans do you have to clean this property up? What do you have for plans to clean it up related to what your operation's going to be? Not including the old fuel tank situation and the parking lot. Let's take that out of the mix right now. Let's talk about the building. Let's talk about the overgrowth. Let's talk about the trees in the back of the play area. What's your plans? What are your plans to fix that?
The one tree that's closest to where we will have the play area, that will be taken down. The play area will actually be foam built, which will have like a track. So when they ride their bicycles, they'll have the track there for them. And that's X section will also be gated off. So when you come into the building, you would have to come through the gate to actually get to the playground and to the entrance at that back entrance. The front area, we would make it more beautiful. We would use that as the children's playtime, doing flowers, because the rest of the trees that's on the other side wouldn't have anything to do with us, on the other side of that fence. So we would get the landscaping,
So the south side of the fence you're talking about?
yes. So it's only one tree that would be an issue, and that's right behind the building next to where the play area would be.
So what do you do for fence? What kind of fence do you put? I mean, you've got a combination of chain link, what is to the east and to the south. You've got the building to the west to some extent.
So right there would be where the play area would be. It would be a chain fence there going
From the building to what?
on my north and south, east and west, thank you, east and west. So it would connect to the adjacent fence that's already up. Right there, so that tree would come down. So you put a fence there, because so they wouldn't be able to get to that air conditioner section. So right there would be another fence, gated fence, because that's the parking lot. So you would have to go through the gate to get to the door for the back entrance. But everyone would be using the front entrance because that's where they would have to sign in at. That back entrance would be just for when we take the children out to play.
Okay, that's good for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caremagno. Any other questions for our petitioner? Mr. Ventura?
I note in the picture of the play area inside the building, you used the word proposed.
Yes. That there was a picture of how we would set it up for
Is
outside.
that the actual equipment you're gonna put in the building, or does it mean that you're gonna do something similar?
Similar for that to be outside. I used that picture because that's what we would, it would be something similar to that for the outdoor play area.
Okay, so you don't intend to have anything like that inside,
No, sir.
okay?
On the inside, they would have like sand and water tables for their large and small motor skills. But when it comes to the climbing and all of that, they would have that for outside.
The the site is pretty overgrown, and the landscaping is in disrepair. And the building doesn't look like what the typical childcare facility looks like today, the modern ones. You planning on doing any dress-up on the outside to make this look a little more friendly to children?
Yes, we will, like I said, with all of that landscaping there will be changed. That will be pulled up. It would be beautiful flowers put there. The children could even help us, plant flowers to give them something, some identity there. So all of that would be removed, all of those trees.
Would you be willing to come back to the planning department or back to the inspection department with specific plans showing exactly what you're going to do before you were able to get a permit or before you would get a final approval to go ahead and open your childcare?
Yes, I would.
Thank you, Mr. Wilshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Do we have any other questions for our petitioner? I don't see any other questions. Is there anyone on the commission wishing to speak to the owner of the facility to ask any questions? Seeing some nods. So I think we're all set, Ms. Guess. Is it possible to get the owner of the property to come forward? Thank you. We do have a couple questions for you as well.
Good afternoon.
Good
Steve
evening. All right, thank you. And again, what's your last name?
Rasho, R-A-S-H-O.
Okay, and your address?
14149 Bunker Hill Drive, Shelby Township.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rasho. I do believe we have some questions of you for the property. Anyone wishing to ask questions? Ms. Smiley?
I can start. In order for this to be a licensed daycare center, there's probably going to be a lot of changes that are going to need to be made. The main one being that the play area, because it's been a while since I dealt with licensing department, but I know they're very particular about the playground area for children, how it needs to be cleaned up, have a good surface. She has a nice play structure, but that needs to be properly installed. Are you going to be responsible for all that?
No. The tenant will be.
And not even the cleaning up of the back of the area and
The
the fence?
cleanup is fine, we haven't decided. I mean, mostly we talk about, for her to get approved first. Then after that, submit a plan to, the planning, it tells you how she's gonna do. I told her to hire an engineer, somebody where he could give her more idea, and more clearance what she's gonna do outside. I'm sure the building have to be approved,
Yeah, the building, there'll be, I know like the fire department has a set of rules. They have all kinds of rules about that kind of stuff. I do have a question though about that fencing. We've had a couple waivers on the fencing near the residential area.
Yes.
To make a permanent wall. What's your plan for that?
I tell you the truth, I bought this property 2 years ago from the O'Hara family, Mike O'Hara. And, my plan was, to get lease it and like I said, whichever way the committee will decide to what kind of fence we put in there or what kind of improvement, we have to comply with that. So I'm not sure, like I said, I haven't done a lot to the property, but was just a development. I own the 7-Eleven across the street, and this property, I just bought it for investment, so I'm not sure. Like I said, what, they're looking for, the committee or the building department, and that fence was there for a long time. I mean, whoever put it, I think the subdivision put that fence in there. So when it was approved to put the fence in there, so I'm not sure if it's supposed to be brick fence or black fence, I'm not sure of that. I mean, if you approve the fence in there the way it is, I don't understand.
Well, there was a waiver granted. Mr. Toromino, would you like to tell him what's required?
Well, what's required by ordinance is a masonry wall, and that was required 50 years ago. But there, as I indicated in my opening statement, there have been a series of waivers granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals, but those expired in 2005, I believe. And so the issue has never been resolved. technically there should be a wall across the back of that property. Or he'll have to seek another wall waiver, either through the zoning board of appeals or get the neighbor's approval. So that's something that we've included language in the approving resolution for this item that would address that issue.
Yeah.
Okay, and then were you aware of what they said about the parking lot? I would imagine that's your responsibility.
I'm not sure what's a park land.
Well, let me find it.
That'd be the inspection letter.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that.
I didn't get
print.
nothing from you, I know.
It says that pursuant to your request, the above referenced petition, it has been reviewed. The parking lot needs to be repaired as necessary and restriped, and the parking spaces are to be double striped, 10 by 20, and there's no dumpster enclosure at this time.
That's fine, if that's what requirement is, we comply with the requirement.
So you'll do the parking lot and stripe it and put in
Yes.
a dumpster enclosure?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Ms. McHugh?
Can you just tell us a little bit about, in the past, this building was a gas station, correct?
I think about 50 years ago or something. I'm not sure.
There's, I believe in some of the records show that there's been some environmental work testing done
Yes.
on that property. Do you have any of those records?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because, okay.
I have a baseline study they
You
done
have a
on the
phase one?
property, and if you need a copy of it, I'll bring you a copy, that's no
Okay.
problem.
So you have the phase one?
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. That's always one that's scary before somebody buys the property. And I mean buy it, meaning you 2 years ago and included, so. okay.
And I complied, when I bought it, they do a baseline study on the
Exactly.
property, and that's how, we took ownership on the property.
Great. We just didn't see any formal record of that, so we just would like to see a copy
Nobody
of
asked me,
that.
I'm not sure, like I said, but I think Mike O'Hara, the tenant before me, he had the same thing, he had the baseline study on the property. And I don't know, when he opened it, if you guys required from him or not, when they did the office in there. They should have required it if they at that time,
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of what the timing would be, but that was quite a few years ago,
about I think
correct?
15 years ago.
All right, any other questions, Ms. McHugh?
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for our petitioner, Mr. Ventura?
Mr. Wilshaw. So you're saying there's a baseline environmental assessment that exists,
Yes, sir.
and does it show any contamination?
No, I could bring the
It's clean,
study, yeah.
okay. That answers my question, Mr. Wilshaw.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? For the owner of the property? Okay, I think we're all set. Mr. Rachel, thank you for coming forward.
I appreciate it, thank you, guys.
All right, do we have any other questions for either the petitioner or the property owner at this time? I don't think so. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item? Ma'am, feel free to come forward.
Okay, my name is Barbara Sador. I live at 9408 Newburgh. It's adjacent to that little strip of property. I live right almost next door.
Okay.
Okay, I want to know, is he attempting to do anything to that strip, that 9416, that small strip between their building and my house?
No, there's nothing planned at this time.
So it will stay as is?
As far as we know, yes. There's no plans as part of this petition to do anything with that area.
Okay, because I was thinking of a barrier, because my bedroom is right next to that property, which would be for the drop-off at 6 a.m., 9:45. I'm totally opposed to that. It's going to be noise pollution. You have Churchill coming in, going out. You have the buses. There is no way anybody's going to make a left-hand turn out of that parking lot onto Newburgh. There's nowhere anybody's going to make a left-hand turn onto Ann Arbor out of that parking lot. It's a very small facility, and I cannot believe that they want to put 20 to 30 children in there. They've only got 18 parking spots. They got 10 employees, so drop-off and pick-up, there's only 8 spots available. This, I don't understand. I think that the noise pollution, I think it's just, it's a residential area. It's really not, office space, yes, but it's really not, I would think that this is not going to be conducive to that area.
Okay.
You know, when we bought the house, that was all, behind us was all woods, private owner. That's where the fence came in. They fenced off that property, the cyclone fence. We have a cyclone fence behind ours, and next to the 9416 property, there's a cyclone fence. And I don't understand how the noise pollution, the traffic, when you get Churchill letting out and coming in, there's no way I can get out of my driveway. Right. And I just don't know how you're gonna facilitate 20, 30 more cars, especially at that time in the morning. I don't know if any of you would love to be next to a childcare with 6 a.m. drop-off and 9:45 pickup. I don't think it's just, like I said, it's basically a residential property. And I don't understand that that would be a good spot. Not only that, the traffic, 7-Eleven, when those kids get out for lunch and break, you can't get over there. You can't make a left-hand turn. You can't make a left-hand turn to Ann Arbor. It is just, it's very chaotic. And when the kids are coming to school, you can't get out of my driveway at 7, 8 o'clock in the buses. At 2:30, there is 30 to 40 buses going down Newburgh. I just don't understand how that could be a large area to facilitate all that traffic plus the drop-offs and the pickups. And, you know, I don't know. I think that my property value, I don't know. I wouldn't want to move into a child care facility, next to a child care facility, and I just think my property, there's going to be a problem with my property values. And, you know, I was going to ask her what the ratio to capacity was for the children, 23 to how many children. And that little spot that she's speaking of is a very little spot, and behind the building to that cyclone fence, you know, it's not, I don't know what I would say 5 feet, 6 feet, and it's right on top of their property. I don't understand why, you know, someone isn't there because it's right on top of them, and it's just the noise from the kids, you know, and I understand, I raised 2 children, but, you know, I don't understand what that would be, that area would be, you know, it's just not conducive to a daycare center. So I don't know, did you want to say anything? I guess I said it all, but, you know, I don't know. I'm really, and not only that, if you look, I pulled up 48150, which is our zip code. Mm-hmm. There is, within 5 miles, there is like 6 daycares. There's one down Ann Arbor, there's one on Joy Road, there, you know, and I'm just saying, I think, you know, they're sufficient. Why would we need another daycare? Not that I'm depriving anybody of opening up a business, but it's just not a conducive area, and the traffic's gonna be terrible. I don't know how anybody would expect to get out of that parking lot.
Right.
So that's my opposition, and, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think that it's a residential area, basically, generally. And with the 7-Eleven, there's a church, and then there's a small strip mall on the other corner. So there's not a lot of traffic, but, you know, I just think that's just not conducive.
Well, we appreciate your comments, Mrs. Sador. All those go into our record, so they'll also go on to City Council as well when they consider this. So
what is the next step?
We will make our decision tonight on whether we recommend an approval or denial of this, that then is taken to City Council, where they will also have a public hearing, and they'll make the final decision.
Okay,
that's
there's one more step.
There is, yes.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate your comments.
Right.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item? I don't hear anyone else or see anyone else come forward. With that, is there any other questions or comments from the commission?
Ian, can I ask Mark a question?
Mr. Bonjero, of course.
Mark, so is the dumpster enclosure required? I mean,
It is not required. I think that's a question for the owner and the operator to determine whether or not they feel a dumpster is necessary. If trash is going to be picked up on a weekly basis by our curbside, then that's fine, as long as it's manageable. Otherwise, I think we would have to address the location of that dumpster, because the site is pretty tight.
Yeah, that'd be my concern about if it is gonna go, and then that would affect the traffic pattern on pickup days, right, for dumpster pickup.
Sure, parking, everything.
Yeah.
All right, good. Ms. Guess, could you please come forward? We do have a question that is being asked about how you're going to handle trash.
The trash will be on curbside. So we would have a trash in the back to empty it every night and put it in the trash, but then it would go to curbside. We wouldn't have a dumpster.
Okay, so you'll keep it internally and then take it out once a week?
Yes.
Any other questions, Mr. Long?
Concerning Ms. Sador's comments, how many employees will you're going to have 10 employees, but they won't all be working at the same time, correct?
Correct.
And so what's your peak? You'll have 5 people working at the same time, 6?
No
4?
more than 5. Because
No more
like I
than
said,
5.
myself and my daughter will be there, so we would be part of the staff, and if 3 more.
And then most people, when they drop a child off, they're not staying for a long time, right? They're there, so the
Correct. It's
parking
drop
is
off
going to roll.
and leave. They will come in that front door, log in, and drop their children off. One of the staff will be there to accommodate the preschoolers. The infants, of course, the parent will take their child to the infants' room.
Okay. And with the 6 a.m. Accommodation, how many, given your other experience, how many people take advantage of a 6 a.m. drop off? You know, if you're going to have 20 or 30 kids, how many are going to come at 6? 5?
You may have 4 or 5, no more than 10.
Right, yeah, they're not all
Everybody
coming
don't
at the
have to be
same
at work
time.
that
It's-
early. So
Right.
it's gonna be a in and out process. Because I mean, even in my home, I maybe had 3 at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then about 7 is when the rest of them would come in.
And then I am familiar with the traffic patterns around there, and she's not kidding, you know, especially with the high school. Do you foresee any trouble with your pickups and drop-offs? Again, you know, peak time, 7:30 probably, and then 3 o'clock. Do you have a lot of pickups around 3 o'clock?
I do not anticipate a lot of 3 o'clock
Right.
pickups. Most of them are after school hours, 4 or 5. That's the reason we're going with the late. The afternoon shift will be just dropping their children off at 2. They wouldn't be back until 9 or 9:30. So that's the reason we have the extended hours, because the extended hours is what's needed in childcare.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions for our petitioner, Ms. Smiley?
Yeah, what kind of security measures do you have? What's your sign-in?
The sign-in will be it's a computer program. So the parents will have a code that they have to punch their children in, and we will have alarm system, plus I have security cameras and cameras going on also. But for them, they come in and it's a punch-in system, my baby, where they'll punch in their children, they'll have a code.
To get
that
into
way.
the building, you're talking, right?
To get into the building, they will have to buzz in. We'll have to buzz them in.
Okay, so you or somebody in the office will buzz. Will there be any office staff?
No, we will not have an office.
Okay. And then, you know, the ratio for babies is like, I don't know if it's changed. but
3 to
it's-
1.
Yeah.
No
so-
more than 4 to 1. That's why we wouldn't have that many infants.
Okay. Do you have clientele lined up already?
Yes.
Okay. And for a preschool, is it still 16 to 2? Well, it
It's
depends on, if they're 2, what is it for 2, 3, and 4? It's been a while.
It's a large amount, but we're going to keep it on a down scale. I would have 1 person for no more than 5. So again, the 20 to 30 is what the licensed fire marshal said I could have. But again, depending on how many children that we're going to have, we may not have up to 30, but he said it was the ratio for the measurements there could have up to 30. We're thinking more line of 20 because we do understand it's a small area.
Yeah, it is it's a small office, it's a small area, but that's a lot of children. But you're saying that it probably closer to 20 than the 30?
Yes, yes. Because they need so much space per child. And with my infants in that building, that brings down your ratio.
Right.
So with my 3 to 5, my 1 to 3, I would have 1 person per infant, per 3 infants. So that would mean I could only have 2 or up to 6 babies at one time. That would be the max, but we're looking at 4. So we would have the infants and your toddlers in that same area. Toddler meaning they're moving into crawling and learning how to walk before they would go to the preschool area.
Okay, and do you have staff lined up?
Yes, ma'am.
I know it's really hard to get people to do because it's a low-paying job, and you need people that are educated and trained because they have the greatest responsibility doing this kind of a thing.
My daughter is at Baker College,
Okay.
so we're already hiring the students that's there because they're already in training.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I'm just telling, I'd like to see this landscape plan and playground plan before I could comfortably vote on it, I'm afraid.
Okay,
Okay?
that's a good comment. Thank you. Any other comments for our petitioner before we make our decision? I don't see anything else. Thank you, Ms. Gus. We're going to make our decision.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. With that, I will close the public hearing, and a motion would be in order.
Mr. Wilshaw,
Mr. Ventura.
I agree with Ms. Smiley that there are a lot of unanswered questions regarding this petition, and I too am not prepared to support it this evening with the number of unanswered questions that we have. I'd suggest tabling this tonight and let the petitioner come back and fill in the blanks for us. And I think that way she'd get a fair hearing, and we'd have all the information we need to make a fully informed decision.
All right, and you would propose tabling to the next regular
Yes.
meeting?
Yes.
Okay. A motion has been made by Mr. Ventura to table to the next regular meeting. Is there support?
Support?
Supported by Mrs. Smiley. There is no discussion on tabling motions. If the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye. Motion is passed. The item has been tabled to our next regular meeting, which will be September 22nd, is it?
October 22nd,
October.
but we do have a study meeting next Tuesday. So any new information that the petitioner can provide either at next Tuesday's meeting or beforehand would be helpful. Otherwise, the public hearing would resume on October 22nd.
Okay, so October 22nd for the public hearing, and then the study meeting would be available to provide
Correct.
additional
And that
information.
would be, what is that? Apologize. The 15th, yes.
The 15th, okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms.
I'd
Smiley.
also like to see that environmental, he has all that paperwork. I'd like to actually see it
Okay.
on the property.
I think Mr. Tormina has heard that, and that can be relayed to the petitioner, so we'll be looking for environmental paperwork on the property, and then some additional information on landscaping. And I think that should satisfy what we're looking for. So with that, the item, of course, like I mentioned, has been tabled, so we will see you at the next meeting, and thank you for coming tonight. And we'll move on to miscellaneous item section of our agenda, item number 2.
Petition 2019-09-08-14, submitted by Livonia Medical Ventures LLC, requesting approval of all plans required by Section 18.58 of the City of Livonia zoning ordinance number 543 is amended, in connection with a proposal to construct a canopy addition and renovate the exterior facade of the building at 10982 Middlebelt Road, located on the east side of Middlebelt Road between West Chicago and Plymouth Road in the northwest quarter of Section 36.
All right, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Toromina?
Thank you. This is a request to renovate an existing office building that is located at the southeast corner of Middle Belt Road and Orange Lawn Avenue. The zoning is C1, local business. This property is next to or adjacent both to the east and to the south to the Emerson Middle School. This building was constructed in the late 1970s as a multi-tenant complex containing a combination of retail stores as well as a bank that included a drive-up operation located on the south side of the building. Today, the building is mostly occupied by medical uses. The existing structure is 1 story in height. It's a L-shaped building, as you can see from this aerial photograph. It totals roughly 9,800 square feet. The front of the building, or in the front of the building, at the inside corner facing the intersection of Middle Belt and Orange Lawn is an open plaza that contains 2 raised planter boxes. And what this proposal would do is add a canopy that would extend approximately 20 feet into that plaza and would extend about 5 feet above the existing roof line of the building. So this is the rendering that was provided by the architect at last week's study meeting. And the area that we're talking about is this central tower element, if you will. This is the structure, the canopy that would be added to the building, which is currently just a flat facade. You can see it projects out from the building. That distance is roughly 20 feet, and it extends approximately 5 feet above the existing roof line, as was indicated. The plaza would also include a number of other renovations. There's some planter boxes that would be moved, some benches added. So these existing planter boxes, one would be completely removed, and the new support columns that would be bricked, it's kind of a partial wall, would be used to support that canopy. The benches would be added, as well as a new raised brick planter box. In addition, the building, and I'll show you some photographs of what the existing building looks like. There's wood siding along the upper part of the facade. All of that would be removed and replaced with either an EFIS material, an exterior finish, insulated finish system, or either a hardy plank. Maybe the petitioner has more information on exactly what they plan to use this evening, but it shows that being a light gray color. That's the upper part of the facade, just below the blue cornice that would be added to the roof line of the building, and then all of the existing brick on the building would be painted this white color as illustrated. So we have detailed drawings that were provided as part of your packet. Just going back to the photographs, this is what the building looks like. Currently, you can see the wood siding on the top of the portion of the facade. The natural brick on the bottom, that would all be painted and changed. What this doesn't show, obviously, is the addition of the canopy. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to read out the correspondence.
Yes, please.
We have several letters, the first being from our engineering division, that's dated September 25th, and it reads, in accordance with your request, the engineering division has reviewed the above referenced petition. We have no objections to the proposed project at this time. The existing parcel is assigned a range of addresses from 10982 to 10990 Middle Belt Road, with the address of 10982 Middle Belt Road being assigned to the overall parcel. The legal description provided appears to be correct and should be used in conjunction with this petition. The existing parcel is currently serviced by public water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. The information submitted does not show proposed alterations for the utility services, so it does not appear that there will be any impacts to the existing systems. It should be noted that should the developer need to do any work within the Middle Belt Road right-of-way, permits will be needed from Wayne County Department of Public Services. That letter is signed by David Lear, Assistant City Engineer. Next is a letter of no objection coming from the Department of Fire and Rescue. That's signed by Greg Thomas, Fire Marshal, and dated October 4th. Another letter of no objection coming from the Division of Police Department, or Brian Lee, Sergeant of the Traffic Bureau. That letter is dated September 27th. Next is a letter from the Inspection Department that reads, pursuant to your request, the above referenced petition has been reviewed. Number 1, the parking lot needs to be repaired as necessary and restriped. Number 2, the parking spaces are to be double striped and 10 feet by 20 feet. 3, the dumpster enclosure is in disrepair. The commission and/or council may wish to address this. This department has no further objections to this petition. That letter dated October 7th is signed by Jerome Hanna, Director of Inspection. And then lastly, we have no letters of no objection coming from both the Office of Treasurer and the Department of Finance, dated September 27th and September 25th, respectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taormina. Any questions for our planning department? I don't see any questions for the planning department. So is the petitioner here? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And again, we'll just ask your name and address for our record.
I'm Tony Marzelek, 4426 North Meadow Drive, Waterford, Michigan. I'm from the architect's office, Alexander Bogarts and Associates. I'm here representing the ownership tonight, who cannot attend.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming tonight. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the presentation from what we've heard so far?
There was a comment about the parking lot needing to be repaired and restriped, and I've talked to the ownership about that, and they intend to do that. There was a question about the dumpster enclosure. Their preference is to just repair the dumpster enclosure as it is, which is a wood enclosure, but add doors to it or a gate to the front of it. So they're hoping that would be adequate since it's an existing enclosure at this time.
Typically, we want our dumpster enclosures to be masonry, so we'll see how things play out on that and go from there.
Okay.
Appreciate your comments. Anything else that you would like to add?
No, just that we're trying to, as you can see from the renderings, basically recreate or create a new facade on this building and make it, give it a whole new look and feel for it. And so we're hoping to be able to move forward as soon as possible with that.
Okay, great. We appreciate that. And we will note, too, that at our study meeting, there was actual color samples of the materials that were provided.
I do have those with
me
me if you'd like to review those as well.
Yeah, if you'd like to hand those over to Ms. Reese, we can pass them along, just in case anyone wants to see the actual color samples in hand. So with that, I'll ask if there's any questions for our petitioner. Mr. Ventura.
I note that there's a sign in your rendering. Is that a tenant that's going to be in the building?
Yes. Right now, that is one of the tenants the new tenant that is going to be submitting plans shortly for interior renovations.
Is that the only tenant that will be in the building, or is
No,
there more space?
Currently, there's 2 tenants in the building. This would be a third, and then will be 2 vacant spaces still. But this tenant, the Skin and Vein Center, will take up approximately 50% of the building.
What will you do for signage for the 2 new tenants that aren't there yet?
Sorry, what was that?
What will you do for signage for the 2 new tenants that are not there yet?
Currently, they're on the, I don't know if you can pull up the existing photograph, but they're mounted adjacent to that on the facade, the shorter portion of the facade.
So those signs will come down and then be reinstalled?
What's that?
That sign will come down and then be reinstalled once you reface the building?
Yes. There was also a question about the facade material, whether it was going to be a drive-it type material or a hardy board. The preference is for a drive-it or EFS for that to give a nice, smooth, flat finish across the face of the building. That's what the ownership's preference is.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ventura, are you all set?
I think I'm set. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Marcelic, the colors that we have, the samples, the lightest color, the white, is intended for the brick?
That is correct.
And then the gray is the drive-it material, and
That's
then the
correct.
blue would be the cornice, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for our petitioner? Ms. Smiley, then I got Mr. Tormey.
And I might be doing this wrong, but I'm seeing it on the north elevation. That's not the right side I want to see. How about, is there an east elevation? I have northwest.
That's what we're looking at on the screen right now.
Yes, that's the back.
Okay, that's that. How about that drive-through thing? Oops, excuse me, that drive-through thing, where's that?
That is on the south elevation.
Is that staying?
The petitioner would like that to remain. Yes, they did not intend for that to be removed at this time.
What would be the purpose of that thing?
Just costs. They just purchased the building a few weeks ago, and they're trying to get the building occupied, and that was not within their initial scope of work when they.
Okay, but for driving, like if they don't, are they going to have a window that somebody can actually do something?
No.
So it's just a.
As of right now, there is no window on that is part of that drive-through. They've covered it over, So, but they don't know that in the future that might be necessary for a new tenant later on. But they have no, the tenant that's moving in there does not have any need for a drive-up window right now.
Okay, and then, so is it gonna be these colors then?
Yes. Those colors will be on all four sides of the building.
Okay. Okay, I just, and I guess money's a factor here, but it just seems like a hazard, kind of a thing for a driving or parking or anything else. It's kind of a useless appendage, or I don't know what you'd call it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
it is?
It is an expense, though,
Oh, yeah.
that they
To
had
remove
not
that.
anticipated when they purchased the building.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions for our petitioner or his representative? Oh, yeah, Mr. Tormino.
Two questions. The paint that will be used for the exterior on the brick, can you explain that process and what you feel will be its durability in terms of future maintenance? And then secondly, the new concrete, I'll go back to the rendering, and the plaza, the concrete plaza, is that just to differentiate the different materials here, or are you planning on using some type of colored stamp
No,
concrete?
it's just going to be regular concrete.
But that will be replaced, much of it will be replaced?
It would be all replaced.
All replaced, just
everything-
standard concrete then?
Yes,
Okay.
everything within that area will be removed and replaced with new.
Okay, thank you. And then the paint?
The paint is a masonry paint, so it is, it's not your typical paint. It's intended to, has to be breathable so that you don't trap moisture behind it. So it'll be, there's a special paints for painting masonry, and it would be, that's what would be used.
What do you expect the lifespan of that paint to be?
I don't know what the lifespan is. I can, it's your typical, it's basically a stain, so I'm assuming it'll be in the 20 to 30-year range. I don't know that as of right now.
Okay.
But they do have a good record. We've done other buildings, and they've held up very well.
Okay, good. Is there any other questions, Ms. Smiley?
Yeah, I'm gonna drive you nuts. The color scheme, is that part of the Skin and Vein Centers? They like this turquoise?
That is currently the color of their and in their logo, the symbol, the and symbol. That's their color, and that's why that was chosen.
That's what I was figuring. Okay. Well, then I'm not gonna insult their color. It just wouldn't be my choice.
Okay, any other questions for our petitioner's representative? No other questions? If there anybody in the audience wishing to speak for or against this item? I don't see anybody. Thank you, Mr. Marcelic, for coming here, and I will look for a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. McKeon.
excuse me. I'd like to offer an approving resolution that the request to construct a canopy addition and renovate the exterior facade of the building located at 10982 Middle Belt Road is hereby approved, subject to city council approval and the following conditions. That the engineering site plan identified as sheet number SP-2 dated September 19th, 2019, prepared by Noack and Frost Engineers, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That the site's parking lot shall be repaired, resealed, and restriped to the satisfaction of the inspection department. Parking spaces shall be double striped and measure 10 feet in width by 20 feet in length. That the 3 walls of the trash dumpster area be constructed out of the building materials that shall complement that of the building. The enclosure gate shall be of solid panel steel construction or durable, long-lasting solid panel fiberglass. The trash dumpster shall always be maintained, and when not in use, the enclosure gate should be closed. That the exterior elevations plan identified as sheet number A1 dated September 18th, 2019, prepared by Alexander D. Vogerts and Associates, is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That the exterior color scheme is depicted in the rendering received by the Planning Commission on October 2nd is hereby approved and shall be adhered to. That all rooftop mechanical equipment should be concealed from public view on all sides by screening that should be of compatible character, material, and color to other exterior materials on the building, that only conforming signage is approved with this petition, and any additional signage shall be separately submitted for review and approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That no LED light band or exposed neon shall be permitted on this site, including but not limited to the building or around the windows. That the specific plans referenced in this approving resolution shall be submitted to the inspection department at the time the building permits are applied for, and pursuant to section 19.10 of ordinance number 543, the zoning ordinance of the city of Livonia, this approval is valid for a period of 1 year from the date of approval by city council, and unless a building permit is obtained, this approval shall be null and void at the expiration of said period.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mrs. McHugh, supported by Mr. Long. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, if the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Kurt Magna votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, motion passes, and we'll go on to City Council with an approving recommendation. Thank you and good luck with your project. And with that, we'll go on to item number 3 on our agenda.
That is 2018-04-02-10, submitted by Feldman Automotive, Inc., requesting a 1-year extension on all plans in connection with a proposal to construct and operate a used auto dealership with an outdoor display of vehicles, Feldman Pre-Owned Superstore, at 33850 Plymouth Road, located on the north side of Plymouth Road between Farmington and Stark Roads in the southeast quarter of Section 28.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina?
Again, this is a request for a 1-year extension of the waiver use involving the construction and operation of an auto dealership with outdoor display of vehicles. This is the Feldman Pre-Owned Superstore, which was approved by City Council on October 1st of 2018. Looking at the site plan, the plan that was approved showed a 6,850 square foot building that would contain the dealership's showroom and sales office, as well as prep stalls and other services. The number of vehicles that could be displayed outdoors was limited to a total of 817 vehicles. In a letter provided by the petitioner's attorney dated September 11th, they indicate that the client has encountered some challenges in progressing with the site plan and is therefore requesting the 1-year extension of the site plan and waiver use. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I can read out correspondence.
Yes, please.
We do have 1, 2, 3. We have letters from the inspection department as well as finance and treasurer's departments indicating that they have no objections to the proposal. And today we received an email, again dated October 8th, and it reads, "Hello, Planning Commission. Regarding the Feldman Automotive site on Plymouth Road, I offer the 3 attached pictures. I believe the commissioners should have a copy of this correspondence. If the 1-year extension is granted, how soon will they be required to address repairs to the existing lighting fixtures and the overall appearance of the site? Thank you." And that email has been provided by a Sunday Dupuy. And I will note that this petition does include plans for how the site would be used temporarily. That is something that was discussed at the study session. It shows inventory of vehicles, about 479 spaces over about approximately 3.64 acres. And that storage of those vehicles would be at a point roughly 280 feet from Plymouth Road. The area from the right-of-way back to a new fence that would be installed that would delineate the edge of that storage lot. That whole area would be cleaned up, I believe, including removal of the lights. We can get confirmation of that from the petitioner this evening. The only improvements that would exist between the right-of-way and that fence line would be some driveways providing access to the storage lot, as well as to the adjacent business to the west, which is the Hearst Rental, which relies on access across this parcel. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Any questions for our planning staff? I don't see any. Our petitioner is here this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Trey Bryce with Jaffe Radar. Our address is 2777 Franklin Road, Southfield, Michigan. Their attorney wrote the letter that Mr. Tormina talked about here on behalf of the owner. Owner unfortunately couldn't be here because it's Yom Kippur, so he's at home. The basic facts is exactly that. We did, after getting the approval, ran into some staggering construction costs, as we shared during the study meeting. Bids came in 30 to 40% higher, even after value engineering. It still was choking of the cost, still like 4.2 million was still some of the costs they were getting in. So I've been looking at trying to figure out how to potentially maybe do some redesign to bring those costs down, as well as the owner's been investigating potentially buying that Hertz property that was mentioned, just to the west of the property, to potentially use that as their facility, then use the front portion instead of would have been the 1-800, a different new retail, some other use that potentially could be a great win-win for everybody. The questions addressed in the email, yes, all the light poles would be coming down as part of this plan. The showed on the overlay, the back wooded portion would stay essentially as it is right now. There is the telecommunications tower in the back, so there would be the gate and the fence. There's a trail or drive that goes back there. All that would remain the same. The midsection is what will be used for the temporary storage. It is fenced on the 3 areas. We'd repair any areas that may need to be, but then the new fence would go across the front and screened all the way around so the cars wouldn't be visible. The front area, which is about 2 acres, would be cleaned up. Again, if the light poles would be removed. Gravel, concrete would be all ripped up, except for the drives that were necessary to get, as Mr. Tormina mentioned, to get both to the back parking end so the Hertz can still maintain its access. Be regrassed, the islands would still remain, be regrassed, and everything would be cleaned up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bryce. Appreciate the background information. Do we have any questions for our petitioner? Ms. Smiley?
Did you get the email with the pictures of the lights?
I did not. I think it said it actually came in maybe today by the date. But we did address those.
They're all coming down anyway,
Yes,
right?
those are all coming down.
And do you have a timetable for that?
I don't. Probably as soon as we get the approval, then we have to still, city councils would probably start doing it as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Any other questions for our planning, or for the petitioner? I don't see any.
Sure.
Mr. Caremagno?
So this is a temporary variance of what you've been approved on. When you say putting up a fence in the back, that's the fence between Plymouth Road and the car storage area?
Yes.
So there's a fence there now.
There's
Gate's
not-
down- It looks like the gate's down.
I don't believe there is a fence in the front part right now.
Yeah, there is in the back. So there's one in the back and the gate's down.
The back where it goes from the part that's already kind of gravel to the wooded area, is that what you mean?
No, it's in front. It's in front of there. There's a fence somewhere in there, and I can't quite put my finger on where it is in the property. So that fence gets replaced?
Yes.
Okay, and screened how? How does it get screened?
With the fabric screening, green screening that you see at commercial properties, golf courses, that sort of screening.
Let me ask Mark, is that permitted, screen fencing? I don't think so, though. That's why I'm asking.
I'm not sure it's prohibited. I think it's probably as a site plan element, it would be at the discretion of the planning commission and
Okay,
city council, whether or not to allow it.
okay. And then, so the rest of it gets bulldozed up and the gravel and
Correct.
dirt and concrete get pulled out of there?
Correct.
And how many driveways going off Plymouth Road?
The 2 driveways that are there remain.
Okay, they remain as gravel or they remain as cement?
It
Or
would,
asphalt?
it's, what it remains now, I believe it's asphalted, that's how it would remain.
Okay. Okay, is there a sign there that says property of Feldman? Is there any sign that recognizes the property as Feldman property?
I don't know, is there any signage right now? No, there isn't.
Okay. That's all the questions I've got for right now.
I have one more.
Thank you, Mr.
Have you had any
Caremagno. Ms.
security
Mann?
problems with those cars and stuff there?
There haven't been to this point, and it's actually been a blessing, I think, both to Feldman and the city itself, is they've been able to take the cars that have been parked all around the city and condense them into one spot. So it's made it a little easier that way.
Oh, good, all right. That was just, I was curious if you had any kind of security problems or damage or stolen or no. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Ms. McHugh?
The fence that you were referencing, the green commercial fence, that will be permanent? Will that be the type of fencing you'll keep in there permanently, or will that be adjusted after you make all of your other renovations?
That's just for the temporary usage. If we go forward to this point, even with the one plan, there is the site plan that was approved, we would have to follow that. Any changes that we would make, we would actually have to come back with another site plan, and whatever would be in that, we would follow.
So it's just temporary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner? I don't see any others. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item? I don't see anybody else in the audience. Mr. Bryce, one quick question on
Yes.
the, on this plan to do this temporary modification of the site, this cleanup. In our approving petition, we have it noted that this would be completed no later than December 1st of this year. Are you able to meet that timeline to get that fencing put up and?
The fencing, I don't know if all of the I mean, I know the plan would be to get it in during this season for the growing. I actually don't know that I don't know that there's a commitment for that, an ability to commit for that, I'm saying.
Okay, Mr. Toromina, is that, am I reading that correctly? Item number 3 indicates
Well,
that it should be completed no later than December 1st?
Yeah, so we provided a date, I guess, for discussion purposes.
Okay.
Exactly the reason
Placeholder.
why you asked that's correct. But you'll notice the language that follows that date provides an avenue for the petitioner to get an extension by posting the requisite bonds for any improvements that are not completed by that point. So whatever that date is, I think we'd probably still recommend the possibility of an extension.
Okay, should we be having a discussion then about what date should go there? What they believe is an appropriate date to complete these improvements?
You know, in terms of council approval, assuming that there's action this evening that would move this forward to city council, and they can review it by the end of October with approvals in November, it probably doesn't, it only leaves roughly, a month or so to get the work done. So you'd probably want to extend that out at least another month, considering the amount of work to be done. They'd have to mobilize the equipment to do the earthwork, the installation of the fence, the removal of the light poles. That's probably at least a month's worth of work, I would think, so.
It's hard to lay sod in the middle of December and January.
Yeah, they
too.
won't be laying sod. I imagine they'll be seeding it, and that's probably something, if they miss their window of time to get that seeded this year, that's something that we'd probably bond for and have them do in the springtime.
Sure. Mr. Long?
If we were to offer up a waiver of reconsideration, would that help expedite the city council hearing?
It could, yeah. I didn't look at the dates, Mr. Long, but yeah, it could very well.
Thank you.
Good point, Mr. Long, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Bryce, what is your feeling in terms of having this temporary work completed?
I think, again, some of it based on all of the dates, it would mobilize us as quickly as possible. And the bonding part does make sense, especially for the landscaping. Even at November, that would be tough to start laying some grass, so.
Definitely. All right, good, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments, so a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Smiley.
I'll make an approving resolution. I'm talking a lot tonight. That the request for a one-year extension of the plans approved in connection with the proposal to construct and operate a used auto dealership with outdoor display of vehicles, Feldman Pre-Owned Superstore at 33850 Plymouth Road, subject to city council approval and the following conditions. That the request for a one-year extension of waiver use approval by Jaffe Rate I'm probably saying these all wrong, Hewer and Weiss, on behalf of Feldman Automotive in a letter dated September the 11th, 2019, is hereby approved. That all conditions imposed by the council resolution number 355-18 in connection with the petition 2018-04-02-10, which permitted the construction and operation of a used auto dealership with outdoor display of vehicles, Feldman Pre-Owned Superstore at 33850 Plymouth Road, shall remain in effect to the extent that they are not in conflict with the foregoing condition. That temporary use of the site shall be in full compliance with Vehicle Inventory Lot Plan dated September the 4th, 2019, as prepared by Alpine Engineering Incorporated. Said plan to take effect immediately and be completed no later than January 1st, 2020, unless an extension is granted by the Planning and Inspection Departments for the completion of any items not completed due to weather, and which shall be subject to the petitioner posting an appropriate cash performance bond with the city, and further provided that no vehicles shall be stored within the front 2 acres of the site as illustrated on the plan, and that the time period for developing the property is provided for in paragraph number 10 of the conditional rezoning agreement between the City of Livonia and Feldman Automotive Incorporated is hereby extended commensurate with the extension of the site plan and waiver use under petition 2018-04-02-10, and further provided all conditions of this resolution are hereby incorporated by reference into said conditional rezoning agreement.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Smiley, supported by Mrs. McHugh, to approve. Is there any questions on or comments on the motion? Hearing none, if the secretary is ready, please call the roll.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
No.
Caremagno votes no. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes no, the motion will pass and go on to City Council. Thank you, Mr. Bryce, for coming. Good evening.
You pronounce that perfectly.
We got an approval on the pronunciation of the law firm.
Glenn, did you want to do a 7-day waiver?
I would propose a 7-day waiver.
Will that help you?
I think what we're going to do is offer a waiver. Normally, you have a 7-day waiting period before the motion is official. Mr. Long is proposing to waive that to see if we can get you to a sooner council meeting.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay, Mr. Long has offered that. Is there support?
Support.
We have a motion to waive 7 days, supported or provided by Mr. Long, supported by Mrs. Smiley. Is there any discussion? If not, the secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
No.
Caremagno votes no. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye. The motion passes, and we'll go to the City Council. So thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck. And that takes us to the end of our miscellaneous items section of our agenda. We have one more section left. That's the pending items section.
And that is the motion to hold a public hearing pursuant to Council Resolution number 293-19 in connection with a proposed amendment to Section 18.42A of Article XV 111 of the City of Livonia Ordinance number 543 as amended, and proposed new Section 18.42B regarding small cell wireless facility zoning regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Tormina.
This is just a scheduled public hearing for a proposed language amendment dealing with small cell wireless technology. And this is a language amendment prepared by the law department. And we would set the public hearing date for Tuesday, October 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. And is there anyone wishing to make that motion?
So moved.
Mr. Long is going to make that motion, supported by?
Support.
I have Mr. Ventura supporting that. Again, this is just to set the public hearing date to October 22nd. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, Mr. Secretary can call the roll.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Ventura.
Aye.
Mrs. Smiley.
Aye.
Mrs. McHugh.
Aye.
Mr. Bonjero.
Aye.
Caremagna votes aye. Chairman Wilshaw.
Votes aye, and the motion passes. We have one more item on our agenda.
That is the approval of the 1,148th public hearing and regular meeting held by the Planning Commission on August 27th, 2019.
And were all members present, I believe?
They were, I don't see where we were now.
Someone missing? Gotta check the record on that. Actually, I have them right here. You were absent, Mr. Caremagna, I believe.
Was I?
Yes, you were. That's what the minutes say.
I believe him.
I guess I was.
So do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move we approve them. Oh, sorry.
We have,
Refer to Ms. Smiley.
okay, we have a motion to approve by Mrs. Smiley and supported by Mr. Ventura?
Sure.
All right. If there's no objection, I could have done this on the last one. I think we can safely show 6 to approve that with Mr. Caremagna abstaining.
I'm out.
All right, and that takes us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business to come before the commission at this time? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Long and
Support.
Mrs. McHugh have made a motion to adjourn, and again, I think we can safely show 7 to adjourn the meeting tonight, if there's no objection, and that will take us to the end of our evening. I'd like to thank Livonia Television staff for their contribution to our meeting, and if there's no further business to come to the Planning Commission, we are going to adjourn our meeting at 8:21 p.m. Good night, Livonia.